Welcome back to React Native Radio Podcast. Brought to you by the Ford Motor Company. Ford, you'll get what you ordered, eventually. Episode 231, Using Flipper's Flamegraph Tool.
I hear there are some new developments in your truck saga, Jon Major. I don't know how many segments, how many openings we've done on your truck so far, but it feels like a lot.
Yeah, I think on here just a few, but I have done now some on the React Native newsletter videos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
which, by the way, you go to reactnativenewsletter.com. You can see those awesome videos. Quick little plug there.
There you go. But I have gone through about 10 different Ford trucks. I like to call it 50 Shades of Ford. But I'm super excited to say that the truck had arrived a couple days ago.
Finally the right one?
Yeah, it's the right truck.
Can you remind us what was
Yes.
the mistake in the original truck?
Yes, so the original truck wasn't big enough. I should have just been...
Like physically big or like...
Payload capacity of towing.
Payload, okay.
I should have just gone big or go home. I didn't, and it was my mistake. But Kunis corrected it for me, and again, it's the right truck, so I'm super happy.
If you live in Janesville, go visit.
Yeah,
Janesville, Wisconsin. You know, I feel like if you live in Wisconsin, a big truck is probably more useful, right? Like that's the type of vehicle you want to have when it's snowing and
oh yeah,
there are trees laying around on the ground or whatever happens over there.
Yeah, snowing. If you get bored, you can take it out into the field and just start muddying, do all the Wisconsin stuff.
Yeah.
What's the phrase that I've heard about Wisconsin and like Minnesota and the sort of upper Midwest is like, we don't have hurricanes, we don't have earthquakes, we don't have alligators. And that's how you make it through the horrendous winter.
Facts.
Yeah. You do get snowstorms though, hey?
Yeah.
Well, I guess every place has its ups and downs. Speaking of major purchases, did either of you buy a Mac Studio? You know, the Apple announcement was Tuesday.
I didn't catch it.
You didn't even watch it?
No, of course I watched it. It's pretty much required if you work here.
It is required. We shut down the company.
It's true, actually.
I'm thinking about it.
I did not buy one.
I did. And here's the thing. Like, I actually just recently bought a MacBook Pro with an M1 Max. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, a few months ago. But here's the thing. I wanted a desktop setup here, and I was hoping they would come out with new iMacs, but they didn't. So I ended up buying this MacBook Pro, M1 Max. It's been great. It's been awesome. And then I bought one of those 5K LG displays. And the problem is it's really awkward on my desk. I know this is total first world problems, right? But it's really awkward on my desk because I like to have...
My $4,000 computer just like isn't quite pretty enough for my desk. It's just not quite the right size.
Well, you're making this sound really bad. Yeah, no, it's definitely... I really shouldn't complain anymore. But what I ended up doing was selling it to one of our developers here, Lizzie, who needed an M1 and
tried.
I know you got there.
I honestly tried. I was too late.
A little too late.
I guess I'll rough it on this this clunky Intel chip.
Obsolete.
2019.
I do have the original M1 MacBook. It's a 13-inch. It's for sale. So there you go.
You know, it's amazing how much mileage you can get out of those M1s. But yeah, I have a Mac Studio on the way, and then I'll just hook it up to this 5K monitor. I feel like it'll be a good fit for what I do here. And then I actually dropped off that M1 over at Lizzie's house because she lives near us.
Oh,
over in Portland.
Nice.
But yeah, it's so I'm back on my Intel, and my older Intel, which isn't even that old. It's like 3 years old.
It's the same vintage as mine, which was an upgrade for me.
And then they come out with the M1 and it's all just obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know. So I'm too afraid to make the switch to a desktop because I'm really attached to the flexibility of a laptop.
I am too.
I think I spent maybe half my pregnancy working from my bed. So it's like if I had a desktop,
Right.
that would be difficult.
I pretty much agree.
Except I have been in coffee shops where people do bring their desktops, believe it or not.
Oh my God.
And those desktops are full on towers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So the Mac Studio would be much easier to bring into
Yeah.
a coffee shop.
I'm
Nah,
definitely not
that's
doing
true.
that. I'll definitely hang on to my Intel Mac just to have that portability. That'll be nice. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having that Mac Studio. I was thinking about getting the M1 Ultra, which seems a little weird because isn't Max the top? You can't go above Max, but somehow Ultra is more. It's like double Max.
About. And then you
I
can
think they
code in
literally
warp
just
speed.
doubled it. They put them
It's
together.
like-
Anyway,
But if you want to code in warp speed, you do have to get the Ultra. I'm pretty sure.
We were putting bets on what the next modifier would be, since they're clearly not going to go to M2.
no.
You would think the one that was just like doubled up would have been called M2 because it's 2 of them. But no, I think they're going to go,
Like M squared.
ooh,
That would
yes.
be good.
Of course, then it'd have to be like quad, right?
M infinity was my guess.
I guess we should get to work here.
Quad.
This is a classic Infinite Red meeting where we spend most of the time just BSing, and then if we have time, we get some work done. I'm Jamon Holmgren, your host and friendly CTO of Infinite Red. I am joined today by my, inspired by the Apple event, unprecedented co-hosts, Robin and Jon Major. Robin is a senior software engineer located in Portland, Oregon at Infinite Red, specializes in React Native. What's up, Robin?
Oh, it's a typical Thursday. It's very sunny today. It's nice.
You seem a little more chipper. Are you getting more sleep?
Last night was actually a very good night.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
The kids,
The little one,
both
both the little ones.
the little one and the slightly bigger one have been giving us a run for our money at night. But last night was thankfully a good night. So I'm rested. And
That's great
happy.
because I think you're going to have to carry today. Jon Major is also with us. Jon Major lives in Janesville, Wisconsin, and is a senior software engineer here at Infinite Red. He's also the editor-in-chief of the React Native newsletter, which you can go to reactnativenewsletter.com to see. What's up, Jon Major?
Not a whole lot. Doing swell. Got a little tickle in the throat, but I'll be okay.
Yeah, it happens. I have kids. It feels like I have 4 kids, and they just take turns being sick in various ways.
Someone's always sick.
Always.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by Infinite Red. Infinite Red is a premier React Native design and development agency located fully remote in the US and Canada. If you're looking for React Native expertise on your next React Native project, is this SEO? I'm just saying React Native a lot. Hit us up. You can learn more on our website, infinite.red/ you guessed it, React Native. Don't forget to mention you heard about us through the React Native radio podcast. Also, imagine working with this amazing React Native team. I'm just inserting stuff where I don't even have. Who wouldn't want to work with Robin and Jon Major and all of the other awesome people here? If you're a senior level React Native engineer located in the US or Canada, go to careers.infinite.red. And we are missing Mazen today, but he is at home with his own little one and hopefully trying to get some sleep, but probably not getting any.
You all should be jealous because
true.
we get to see pictures
Absolutely
in
adorable.
Slack.
Just like your boy, Robin. I mean, Infinite Red people make cute babies.
Do have a lot of cute Infinite Red kids.
Okay, let's get to our topic for today.
I think that was the second time we said that.
Let's get to our topic for today.
I know. We are just
For real.
circling.
For realsies.
We're circling it. Speaking of children, Flipper has a child called React DevTools, and built into that, it has the React Profiler, which has the Flamegraph. So we're going to be talking about using Flipper's Flamegraph tool today. It's a relatively specific thing, but I kind of like talking about specific things because we can kind of take our time and really kind of explore the topic a little more rather than having to do kind of this high level quick skim across the entire tool. And I think we're going to be probably doing more of that. And in the audience, if you want us to do more deep dives into specific tools, please let us know on Twitter at React Native RDIO. We definitely read those and we take those into account, and we'll give you a little shout out if we take your idea and run with it.
If you don't know what Flipper is, a little refresher. It's Facebook's debugging tool for React Native. It has a bunch of native debugging tools, and it also embeds React DevTools for looking at
We
JavaScript.
did talk somewhat about it in React Native Radio 183. This was a long time ago. Debugging techniques. We need to do a full Flipper episode at some point. I don't think we've done that.
Yeah. We've done a full Reactatron episode.
That's right.
We tend to give more love to Reactatron because we built it.
Yeah, we're a little biased in that one. But Flipper is really cool too. So
Flipper, yeah.
I'm going to ask Jon Major first. What is a flame graph just in general, or a flame chart?
Sure. It's an interactive visualization tool for your application stack trace. On the flame graph, there's your x-axis and your y-axis. On your x, you have functions that are sorted alphabetically. And then the length of that function call is the time that it takes to run.
Mm-hmm.
The y-axis would be showing the depth of those stack traces. And then traditionally, flame graphs are also colored differently than React DevTools. They use a red-green color gradient, whereas the React DevTools uses a blue-yellow color gradient. But we'll probably get more into React DevTools later on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And they legitimately look like flames. Like you have red kind of going up, and you can have the color gradient be various things. But the more red it is, the more, like, hey, you need to look at this.
Right.
Like something's going on.
It's the dumpster fire to your application.
That's why they call it a flame graph, because it tells you that your app is a dumpster fire.
You get to visualize that. Brendan Gregg actually came up with the concept, I guess, and at least according to the internet, which is never wrong. So there, it created a tool for flame graphing, and if you go look at it, it's like literally, like legitimately looks like flames, like red and yellow flames kind of popping up. But Robin, can you kind of give a sense for why are these useful?
I mean, at least in the context of React Native, they tell you what in your application is taking a really long time to render. So if something is taking a long time to render, there may be opportunities to optimize or streamline to make your app more performant, more snappy, to load more quickly.
I've been working on the Ignite CLI lately, trying to make it a little faster. And this sort of tool would be really helpful, even though it doesn't use components necessarily, but just maybe function calls, like Jon Major mentioned, because often I'm having to just like spit out like, more or less the numbers. I just spit out the numbers on the screen. Then I have to kind of scan through and see, okay, what is taking a long time, then drill down deeper into that. It's a very manual process, usually using like console log and performance.mark stuff. Flame graphs just let you kind of just scan through really quickly and see, oh, there's something red. Let's drill down. Let's see what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like Jon Major was talking about how it's a traditional flame graph. It's sorted by functions.
Mm-hmm.
The React DevTools or Flipper flame graph is basically your component hierarchy.
The tree itself. Yeah.
Right. The tree itself. You can also sort it by time. So like the longest rendering components at the top, which is helpful in obvious ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you can kind of see parents, and then you can drill down to children underneath that and see which children or what child is taking the longest to render. So the React DevTools come with a flame graph, and it was introduced in 2018 just for React.js, not for React Native, because this is a kind of universally useful thing.
It's basically a React tool. It's just your JavaScript. It's not your native layer.
It shows essentially one commit. And we're not talking Git commits stuff. Like these commits are different. So
like React commits.
Yeah, what's a React commit?
So if you're familiar with a render, like we talk about renders all the time, a commit is sort of the opposite end of the cycle from a render. A render figures out what has changed, and a commit is when that's actually applied to the DOM or the
UI kit or
page or
Androids.
Yeah.
So basically it lands on your actual UI then.
Right. So what you'll see when you run a flame graph is you'll see a bunch of bars, different colored bars for each commit. And so you can scan through that and pick like the tallest, most red commit. And then that will then break down into the component tree for that particular commit, and you can figure out what was making that commit so long.
Yeah, it's a very striking thing when you look at it. And unfortunately, this medium, of course, as a podcast, we don't have the luxury of showing you. But if you just search for Flipper's Flamegraph or flame chart, you're going to find something about that and be able to see what that looks like, or just fire up Flipper yourself and see what it's doing on your machine.
And I would add that you can hide commits, like the ones that are fast, so you can just focus on the ones that are slow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It took me a couple of days to find that setting,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely helpful. It sort of
Reduce the noise.
weeds out the things, the noise that you don't really care about.
So once you find a slow render, what's sort of your next step? I know, Robin, you've been doing a bunch of work with this recently in the project you're on. Like, what would be your next, if you see something really slow, like what's your next step?
So if I were to see something really slow, I would pop it open, see maybe what component in the tree is causing the problem. And then I would go to that component, and probably the first thing I would do would be comment out the entire contents.
Ooh.
So it's just rendering an empty view, and then go run it again and make sure it does what I expect and it goes down to 0 or close to 0.
Boy, that is actually really fantastic advice. That's like old school debugging where you are testing your assumptions, because if it doesn't go down, there are a few different potential things going on. One, you're in the wrong file. You're not even editing the right file. And I've spent too many hours debugging and trying to fix the wrong file. So just commenting that out is like just a sanity check of am I in the right file? And then also, is there something else going on that's making this thing slow that isn't even internal to it? Because if you comment the whole thing out and nothing changes, you're probably, there's no point in messing with the internals.
Right, exactly.
I would say probably back in the day, you would just comment out the whole entire app, or you just start all over.
Just throw it away.
Not quite, but the thing is, it's not that much different. If you notice some slowness in your app and you go and you comment out a particular function and it gets fast, then you've narrowed it down. So we didn't have all the fancy flame graphs back in the day, but we had this.
So once you've reduced it down to 0, you can start adding things back in and then try and figure out exactly what is being slow. And it might surprise you. On the client project that I've been working on recently, we're just about to launch. And so we built everything, but now we're just working on performance. And so recently I was trying to make the search results screen faster. And the search results screen is a flat list. It has a bunch of items, and then each item has a photo. And it was really slow. The scrolling was laggy. It just was taking a long time to load. So I dug in. The component that had the image was causing a lot of the slowness, and so that made sense. We went in, we optimized the image. We used React Native Fast Image, which has a lot of caching and optimization built in, lazy loading. And then I tried it again, and it was still slow. And so we ended up nailing it down to the currency formatter. So this particular component would render up a price in dollars or whatever your particular local currency is. And so it would render the text of the price. And that currency formatter was causing most of the slowness in that component, which was not what we expected. And it turns out it was creating a new instance of international or intl.number format every single time that it rendered. And so that was actually the source of the slowness, and Flamegraph helped us suss that out.
Yeah, that's a great example of that. And I feel like you kind of notice performance issues more in situations like a flat list where you're rendering a lot of different components and there's data involved and there's maybe images involved and whatnot. So yeah, that's definitely a big one.
Yeah, definitely. Flat list is one of the first places you should look when you're optimizing your app, because even just a little bit of slowness, if you repeat it over and over and over again, hundreds and hundreds of times in a list, it's going to add up.
Sounds like me. A little bit of slowness repeated over and over. It's my career. What are some other solutions that you might have to kind of fix slow renders? Slow renders is kind of one of those things that is an ongoing topic here at React Native Radio. But
yeah, the first thing that comes to mind would be to lift state up. I think that would be like a common solution for the potential flatlist problem is to like, in that example, perhaps you could lift the state of that use locale hook up into the parent component to then just pass down the one value versus having each individual component try to render that value individually. Another one would be lazy load images, as Robin pointed out. What are some other ones, Robin?
Definitely optimizing your images for sure, and making your repeated components as dumb as possible. Also, the built-in memoization hooks that React gives, use callback, use memo, can be really powerful if you have some expensive computations or variables to avoid having to recalculate every render. That can be really helpful.
And if you want to get into more kind of, I guess, general solutions for any slowness, you can front load some of that stuff during idle states. So like you've loaded everything and they're sitting looking at the initial page. If you can kind of pre-calculate some things that they're going to need later, that would be one way to do it, is to make sure that you kind of use those idle states to perform calculations. But often, like if you're doing a lot of calculations, you pull down a bunch of data or something, then you need to perform a bunch of calculations on it. You should probably be asking your backend team to do some of that stuff beforehand and give it to you in a consumable format, so you're not having to do a bunch of extra work. Because to be honest, extra work on a device, even if it's fast, is going to burn battery. No matter what you do, like cycles will burn battery.
No matter how fast your A15 chip is, it's still, the power has to come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, has to come from somewhere. Exactly. And we have an obligation as application developers to make sure that we're doing things, to be a good citizen on people's phones. I think those are good ones. But to kind of go back to the main topic here about Flipper and the Flamegraph specifically, this is a tool that I think is probably underutilized. I think that it probably should be kind of open on your machine a lot when you're just doing stuff. And, if you finish up a screen or a component of some sort, just run it through and see what it looks like. You may notice something early and you have all the context in your brain to go in there and be like, I bet it's that thing that's being slow, because maybe it wasn't slow before and now you just made some change and now it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another tool. I like having these types of tools. I like being an expert in these types of tools so that I'm not guessing. The last thing you want to do is just sit there and guess at what might be the slowness. You want to actually have tools that measure. And when people come to me and are like, can you help me figure out why this is, being slow? I'm often like, well, let's get some reporting in here. Let's get some metrics, because otherwise we're just guessing. And we make too many wrong assumptions as programmers to rely on that.
I can tell you it's a real dopamine hit to see like 20 milliseconds turn into 5 milliseconds.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, we're going to have a little bit of a shorter one today. Thanks to both of you for sharing your knowledge on that. If you'd like to nerd out more about React Native, and I will be doing probably some performance stuff, check out my Twitch stream at rn.live or youtube.infinite.red. You can also join, by the way, rn.live goes to Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably at some point change that to like a landing page. So all I have to do is say rn.live and then you can go to either from there. That's going to happen sometime. You can also join our Slack community at community.infinite.red, and there are about 2,000 React Native developers in there, and they have a lot of advice about performance and stuff. So you can go in there and ask. Where can people find you if they have questions or whatnot, Robin?
I'm at Robin_Hines on Twitter.
Jon Major?
And I'm at Jon Major C.
And you can go to Twitter or GitHub or whatever at Jamon Holmgren. You can find us on Twitter at React Native RDIO for the show, and give us ideas on what you'd like to hear us talk about or even guests that we might have on. As always, thanks to our producer and editor, Todd Worth, who, by the way, is going to have his work cut out for him, unless it's Jed, who is the other one, assistant editor and episode release coordinator, Jed Bartosky. This one, for some reason, my recording failed partway through. And I don't know, I was moving some cables and everything went wonky. This would never have happened with an M1. It's all Intel's fault. I'm very sorry about that. Also, thanks to our designer, Justin Husky, our guest coordinator, Derek Greenberg. Thanks to our sponsor, Infinite Red. Check us out at infinite.red/React Native. Special thanks to all of you listening today. Make sure to subscribe on all the major podcasting platforms. We are React Native Radio. Reminder, we're hiring careers.infinite.red. Boy, it's just slurring everything together. We'll see you all next time.
See ya.